What a great day it is. Rockies baseball is officially back as of today, and we have a ton to talk about today on the DNVR Rockies podcast. I have an interview as I sat down with Michael Toglia, the Rockies first baseman, to get his thoughts on the 2025 season, expectations, some stuff that he had in conversation with Todd Helton. All of that coming up next right here on the DNVR Rockies show. What's up, everyone? Welcome into the show on this beautiful, snowy Friday, early afternoon, 12:15 p.m. here Mountain Time, and we are rocking and rolling today. Rockies baseball is back. Baseball season is underway. We had our first game officially yesterday, Dodgers and Cubs. We won't talk anything about that because we officially begin the Dodgers hate year, as we'll call it, the summer of hate for the Dodgers, as it is every year, but especially this year. But look, man, I'm just pumped. We got Rockies baseball on the airwaves coming up tonight.
I can't wait. I am going to be tuned in immediately. It's like right after the show, correct? Like
1 o'clock.
So the last 15 minutes, maybe we just put Jack Corrigan on, Jerry Schimmel, whoever it ends up being. I'm fucking dialed.
I'm so pumped.
And then the first game on TV is tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I purchased my Rockies.TV pass today, so I have the whole season. Nobody can take my joy away. And you said that. It was great. I heard, Brett Kane say that on the radio this morning. Baseball season is here. No one can take my joy away. And I said, that is how I fucking feel. No one's taking this joy from us.
That's how we feel.
Baseball season is here. Rockies are back.
Look, there's going to be a time and place for us to bang our heads against the wall about baseball season.
We
will. I will be there right with all of you. But right now, the vibes are high. We're feeling good. And look, we got a good interview that we get to air today coming up in just a couple minutes. I sat down earlier this week with Michael Toglia, and he had a lot of good stuff to say. I mean, I think Tolia is one of those underrated guys who we know about him here in Colorado, but I think the rest of baseball has yet to become familiar with what Michael Toglia is and what he can be. And I think my hope in talking to him was just to see where his expectations were at for 2025 and also to kind of introduce him to a broader audience, because I do think Michael Toglia has a chance of being one of the more underrated players and superstars even coming into this next season, a potential for a Gold Glove if his defense can hold up to the standards that we can expect from him, a potential Silver Slugger if his offense continues to roll. Like, he's got some big foundations that he can grow on, and I'm excited to see him play. Yeah,
he started getting a little bit of national attention considering he still has the highest home runs per at-bat ratio in the entire MLB. So he got a little bit of national attention there, but as we know, the Rockies don't get a ton of national attention. And then he's probably, at this point, before the season starts and before they actually play baseball, third on that list behind the Tovars and the Doyles of who knows who's on this team. And those are the two guys you start with. But after the season he had last year at first base and the fact that we haven't had a consistent first baseman since Todd Helton, and every year it's some platoon old guy that ends up having a pretty decent season hitting-wise, Michael Kadires or some random dude like
just
that.
Bring it back.
Daniel Murphy, all the random guys we've had at first base. It's really refreshing to have a younger guy come up through the Rocky system, play first base, and stick here for an entire season, and hopefully now moving on past that.
Yeah, well, we got about 12 minutes of an interview. We talk about, some of his favorite nicknames aside from Big Mike. There's a little backstory there. Some of his craziest minor league memories, his work one-on-one with Todd Helton. Is he going to be the next Rockies Gold Glover? What does he have to do to get to that spot? Well, that's what we talked about. So let's fire this up here, Tiff. Let's share this interview with you guys. This was my sit down earlier this week with Rockies first baseman Michael Toglia. All right, welcome in everyone to the show. We've got a special guest here with us, Michael Toglia, calling in from Arizona. Mike, thank you for taking the time to chat with me. But before I get started, though, I got to ask, because I've heard this get tossed out a bunch over and over throughout the last year or so, like people calling you Big Mike kind of as like a nickname. Do you like that nickname to begin with, or do you prefer just going by Michael?
I kind of like Togs or Mike, but I mean, you don't really get to choose your nickname. I also have an uncle whose name is Michael, and he is Big Mike to me, so it doesn't feel quite right.
Okay, because that's what I had kind of heard too, and I know a lot of people call you that. It's easy. You're a pretty big guy, and your name's Michael, so it kind of goes hand in hand.
I don't mind.
I love it. But thank you again for taking the time to join us. It's going to be a crazy week for you guys. Baseball starting up. Just from a feeling perspective, I mean, every single year you go into spring training or you go into just this preseason routine. Where's your head at? How are you feeling about everything as you build into the season?
I feel great. I just want to get my body ready to go for the season. Try to build things up, get my rhythm, vision, and timing going in the box, and get my ground ball legs underneath me at first base, and start building some chemistry for this year.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of new faces. You were not too long ago a new face in the clubhouse with the Colorado Rockies organization. So talk to me a little bit now that you've kind of become solidified in your role at first base. How has it been shifting this spring training, mentality-wise from last year kind of being your first real year with the Rockies and how that's shifted into this second season?
I'm still trying to keep the same mentality that I had last year. I want to pretend like I'm competing for a spot. And, you're always competing for a spot. Someone's always trying to take your job. So I don't want to get complacent in my work or the things that I do around the field or in the clubhouse. So I just kind of want to try to be the same guy every single day.
Yeah, I love it. I love that mentality. And, you have solidified yourself as that solid first base starter from here on out. It was kind of the big storyline last year that you had started the most games at first base for the Rockies since Todd Helton. Todd Helton is obviously a big character to compare you to because of just his success with the Rockies. But there's a lot of hope in some of the fans who've gotten to watch you that you can be that next really big starter for the Rockies at first base that can hold down that first base slot for a long, consistent time throughout our franchise. And so does that kind of comparison change anything for you? It's big shoes to fill at first base for the Rockies.
Agreed. Todd's around a lot, and he's been a great resource for me. He helps me on defense. We talk hitting all the time, different cues and feels for approaches. But, I want to be that cornerstone guy at first base, but I'm not chasing his career. He had a fantastic career, but I want to build my own, and I want to build it every day and every season.
Have you talked to him a bunch? Because I know last year he was talking to us, and he brought you up and said that, he really sees a potential for a future Gold Glover, and just some of the skills and the positional abilities that you show at first base. Have you done a lot of one-on-one work with him through spring training or throughout the season? What does that relationship look like?
Yeah, we'll do some picks one-on-one early work. He has this tiny little glove that he'll give me, and we'll do picks with that. So you have to be extra precise with your vision and your accuracy with the glove. But he's, like I said earlier, it's just been a phenomenal resource for me. He said today that he has high expectations for me, and I have even higher expectations for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and look, you're playing in an infield that has done pretty well over the last few years, especially a really young infield. You've got, 3 Gold Glove nominated players last year, 2 Gold Glove, nominated infielders, and Ryan McMahon, Tovar, who obviously won it. Does that step up your confidence a little bit, getting to play in an infield that is as solid as the Rockies infield is?
They definitely make my job easy. Their throws are perfect, it feels like. So, but I still try to do what I can to help them out. And being a first baseman, you take a lot of pride in trying to save errors from your infielders. Even though a bad throw is an error on the other side of the infield, I take responsibility for it, and I feel like it's my error. So I want to try to pick them up as many times as I can.
Yeah, the defensive side is definitely huge. Everyone talks about the Rockies' defense and how, you've got, Gold Glove outfield and what Nolan Jones could possibly be if he jumps back in to full swing this year. And, I think there's this expectation that this is going to be a really big growing year for the Rockies, and you're definitely a part of that. Do you still kind of view yourself as that young player that's still growing, still definitely, yet to reach their peak? And how do you kind of manage those expectations as you enter into a new year?
Yeah, I feel like I'm growing every season. I don't plan on being my best until the day I retire. So I want to every single day, try to become a better version of myself. And I definitely do still feel young. I'm 26 and still got a lot of years left in this game.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be a really young team all around for the Rockies. Hitters, pitchers, all of the above. We talk so much about the bullpen. I know you're an infield guy, but there was a lot of hype around the end of last season when the Rockies had a combination of rookie pitchers that could come in and close out ball games. For you, from a hitter's perspective, does that give you more confidence to know that you've got some young guys in the bullpen that can close the door when you get your team a lead?
Honestly, it was awesome. It felt like all of a sudden we had this three-headed monster of a bullpen where we had 3-4 guys coming in throwing 102, and we would be up a run and be like, okay, here comes our bullpen, game over. Like, it was just such a good feeling to have as a position player.
Yeah, I love that. I'm excited to see how that unfolds. I want to switch gears a little bit, though, and talk about your offensive output, because everyone knows you can hit the ball 500 feet. That's not a surprise to people. But there's a flip side of your game that has really improved last year, especially in the second half of the year. Your ability to get on base, your ability to put the ball in play. That was something that, if you look at the stats, significantly grew throughout the second half of last year. And I would imagine something that you want to improve on as you enter into 2025. So talk to me about your mindset, aside from the power hitting aspect of your game, just your ability to kind of play small ball, get on base, rack your OPS up a little bit higher. What does that look like as you've prepared for 2025?
Yeah, just kind of honing in the things that I do well. I've always taken my walks and driven the ball in the air. So this year I'd like to build on that, and then I would also like to build on being just a more complete hitter all around. And I felt like I started making strides towards the second half of the season, where against a tough matchup, I learned to take a hit and not necessarily sell out for power all the time, because I feel like it's built into my swing because of my natural leverage. So I think just trying to be a complete overall hitter is the goal for this season.
I think one of the most shocking moments, at least for us up in the press box last year, I don't remember who you were playing against, but you squared down to put a bunt down. I think first base was open too or something like that. And we all were looking at it like, is he trying to bunt for a base hit? Is there a world in which that you add bunting into your arsenal in 2025?
I might try to sneak one by this year. I catch someone off guard.
Yeah, I mean, hey, they wouldn't be expecting it. We weren't expecting it, so I'll say that at least. It's definitely
until about 5 seconds before the pitch.
Was that a coaching decision, or was that you that decided to do it?
It was purely on me, just kind of feeling out the situation and thinking, hey, I might try to steal one here.
I love it. I love that. Get a little creative with it. That's a lot of fun. I know, I want to take a trip down memory lane here for a moment, because I know you're still, like I said, relatively young, in this Rockies core. You were in Spokane not too long ago. And actually, kind of a side note, I was actually the PA announcer with the Spokane Indians while you were playing in Spokane. So I kind of got to witness, your time in the minor leagues a little bit. But I want to see if you remember this. Do you remember there was a game that you won a fan $10,000?
How could I forget? That was like the highlight of my minor league career.
Can you?
It had to be in one, and it had to be in a certain inning too. So it wasn't just throughout the whole game, and the stars aligned perfectly.
Can you, for the fans who aren't familiar with this story, can you walk them through what that entire game was like? Because that was a crazy game.
So in high A, they had a promotional thing where during a Grand Slam inning, if one of our players hits a Grand Slam, then a random fan would get $10,000. And I think I don't remember what inning it was, but I came up with the bases loaded during the Grand Slam inning, and with 2 strikes, hit a Grand Slam. And the funny part of that story for me is that it was off of one of my buddies that I played with in the Cape Cod a couple of years before that.
That's so good. And if I remember correctly, Michael Cope, one of your teammates, hit a Grand Slam later in that game, in the same game.
Daniel
Cope, thank you.
That's the even funnier part, is that he hit a Grand Slam later that game, and nobody even remembered it.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, like, it gets overlooked because it didn't win anybody any money, but $10,000, that's that fan was going home pretty happy. I mean, I know the transition from minor leagues to the big leagues is stark sometimes. It's pretty intense. But like, how has that felt for you? Because you didn't spend a ton of time in the minors, but you still spent a couple years there, and then making that transition to playing like big league ball. What is the dynamic shift for you between the two?
It's just the stage is bigger. I feel like we saw all the stuff in the minor leagues, and arguably you saw it in much worse conditions, so it was arguably harder to hit sometimes. Um, Granted, you weren't facing the same ones and twos, but you had worse lights. The boxes weren't the same. You didn't have the same scouting reports, so you just had to kind of go out and compete. And I think that actually is very beneficial to minor league hitters. It may not always feel like it, but it's actually preparing you for when the stage gets bigger and the lights get brighter and nicer and easier to see. That actually helps you slow the game down a little bit.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, last question. We'll let you end with this. The Rockies obviously have struggled over the last couple years. Now it feels like there's this shift towards a brighter future ahead. Young players, guys like Chase Dolan are, possibly getting their first look this year. Some young pitchers, an outfield. It feels like brighter days ahead. How, as you've kind of gotten involved in this organization and become a stable spot on this roster, how does your mindset change going into 2025 as you hope to build a better year for the Rockies in 2025?
I think it kind of stays the same for me. I felt like the approach that I had last year, just trying to be the same guy every day and just build on my craft, that part stays the same. Where it changes is just kind of the chemistry that we're building, because we're adding a lot of new faces, a lot of young guys, and the talent that these young guys are bringing to the team this year. It's really exciting. I think we have a real good chance to shock some teams this year.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. I know a lot of Rockies fans are looking forward to seeing you guys competing out there. And thank you again, Michael, for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Michael Toglia on the podcast there, doing an interview with him earlier this week. Love the stuff that he had to say. Excited to see him play. And I've got to take a break here, but after the break, I got to ask the question, do we think there's a world in which Michael Toglia plays all 162 games at first base? We had that question asked to some of the people in charge at the Rockies, and we'll give you their answer when we come back. But before we get into that, got to give some love to some of our partners, and we'll start with a new one here because this is specifically related to those of you who are heading out to Arizona to watch some spring training. Got to give a shout out to our friends over at Waymo. Waymo is an autonomous ride-hailing service that operates in a couple of different areas, but specifically in that Phoenix metro area. So if you're heading out to spring training this year to catch the Rockies or to just watch some baseball in general, check them out, because especially if you're trying to get, just from the hotel to the ballpark, this is a great way to do that. They have over 40 million miles of real-world driving experience. That's enough to drive to the moon and back 80 times, or maybe as far as Michael Toglia is going to hit home runs distance-wise this year. I don't know. Whichever comes longest, I would say, in that mark. But it's a pretty cool thing that they do out there. It's the way of the future, man. It's, autonomous driving. You're sitting there in the back seat and you're looking up front and there's no one you get to talk to or anything like that. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, no one you have to talk to.
I think
that's
the point.
Is part of the win. I had another company drive me this morning in a car, and I wish it would have been nobody.
right.
I wish there would have been nobody in the car.
Sometimes the conversation, it's like, I just want to get in a car, just be in my own little world,
I have
get
a headache,
from point A to point B.
Just get me there
Yeah.
safely, please.
It's good. It's good. So, yeah, if you're heading out to Arizona for spring training, download the Waymo One app and get ready to experience the future. The future, indeed. Well, speaking of the future, also got to give a shout out to our friends over at Mando. Mando has you covered as we get closer and closer to summer. You're going to start sweating a little bit. I know I do. It's just the world we live in, right? It gets hot here in Colorado. And you want to make sure you're ready for that with some full body deodorant. Mando, they're the best in the business. They've got you covered. They will make sure you are smelling nice and fresh all day long. They've got some really good manly odors as well. Bourbon leather, clover woods, Mount Fuji. What do you think Mount Fuji smells like?
It's kind of like rainforesty, maybe a little bit.
Little forest, little kind of like a misty vibe. Yeah, I like that. They also have Pro Sport for those of you who go above and beyond probably what Spencer and I do, and get out and actually go hiking and doing all the craziness that you do out there in Colorado. So Mando has you covered. Be sure to check them out. They've got Mando Starter Pack, perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping as a special offer for our listeners. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with your exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off on your starter packs. Use code DNVR at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with our friends at Mando. All right, welcome back here to the DNVR Rockies podcast. We are celebrating. I don't know. I mean, can we say it's celebrating because it's baseball season? It's about the only time Rockies fans get to celebrate anything, and it's before the season starts, so we'll take it.
We're celebrating the excitement that the future, we don't know what it holds, and that's
such a good feeling.
And let's be realistic, we don't have that high of expectations.
Yeah,
and that makes it a lot easier to watch games, and it makes it a lot more fun to watch games when they win and you didn't expect them to win.
I've been saying it. If I was a Dodgers fan, first of all, that I would hate my life. But if I was a Dodgers fan, I'd be stressed going into 2025 because you're sitting there thinking to yourself, like, we have to win a World Series. Otherwise, this year is a loss. Rockies fans, it's obviously unfortunate. I would rather have that feeling than the opposite. But the silver lining of what we feel right now is that, there's not a lot of expectations here. So let's kind of, set our limits, set our expectations, kind of set the bar at a reasonable spot. And just get excited about anything that goes over that. We were talking on the company Slack earlier this morning about, what the money line is for, wins and losses this year. And we're like, I think, what is it set at 59.5 for win totals this year? I'm like, that seems reasonable for the Rockies.
I hammered the over.
And
I won
100%.
I hit the over last year.
Yeah.
I hit the over last year as well. It took till like the last series of the season.
Sure.
And my friends were wrecking me about it. All of August, they're like, they're never getting there. And then they started winning a few games. They had a few hot streaks. And I'm like, the boys are going to get there. And they did.
Look, the Rockies offense, I think, is the reality marker for us. The Rockies offense still has a lot of work to do. The defense is going to be good, and we're going to talk about that later in the show. I think what's going to change, though, between 2024 and 25, and we talked about it on the show already, it's the pitching. Like, the Rockies are at minimum, going to have better pitching from last year to this year. Now, is it going to be a small step? Are we going to go from having historically bad pitching to just slightly bad pitching? Maybe not. Maybe we'll go from, that to something a little bit better. But either way, I do think the pitching is going to be better coming in from 2024 to 2025. So we'll keep an eye on that. And we'll talk more about that as the show goes on. Wrapping back up and circling back to our conversation that just aired with Michael Toglia. If you missed it, I see a couple people in the chat asking if he called in. If you missed it, we were just had him on here just moments ago. So go back and watch that on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. First 15 minutes of the show was the interview with Michael Toglia. But I asked the question before the break, will Michael Toglia play all 162 games at first if he stays healthy? And we had kind of asked that to Bud Black, Bill Schmidt, and company. And they had actually said, despite the vibe going into 2025 being that like health and longevity is huge for the Rockies, and that being a priority and acquiring depth pieces to allow for that to happen, that Michael Toglia might be the only guy on the team that might actually play every single game. I don't think he will, but there's a world in which Michael Toglia plays every single game unless he is injured. Like, that's kind of the world we're living in right now, and I think that's a good thing. I don't want to see anyone else at first base other than our boy Togs.
Yes, and I think even with Tolia, outside of that, I think the Rockies finally have the who this year at almost every position. Now, there's always going to be position battles. There's going to be players that get hurt. It's an unfortunate part of professional sports, but I think last year they dealt with way more of that than they anticipated, especially in the pitching, like you talked about. But having your guy at first base, second base is still that old Rockies mentality. They couldn't get all the way out of it, but they're going to play a guy, a journeyman type of guy that
Sure.
didn't have the greatest 2024, but rakes at Coors Field, so we can be excited about that. But almost every other position on this team is like, all right, that this is the guy that's supposed to play this position. We're not waiting for somebody else. Yes, we're waiting for the Dolanders and Charlie Comden's way down the road, but the guys that are there are like, all right, this is a team that we believe we can win with in the future. Can these guys have a good 2025 and grow and build and play most of the games? Like, there's nothing worse than, a season getting derailed by injuries hurts for a number of reasons. If you're a Dodgers fan and you have a guy get hit in the first spring training game by 106 mile an hour ball off the bat, first game, you're like, okay, well, this is hurting our chances at the World Series. The Rockies, if something like that is happening where their guys are getting hurt and they're not playing all the games that we anticipate them playing this year, they're not they're just stunting their growth and kicking this can down the road. We want to see these guys play. Seeing Tolia play 162 games would be great. Seeing Tovar play 130 plus. Seeing Brenton Doyle play 130, 140 plus. Those are the things that are like, all right, you guys are in the MLB now. You've had a full year under your belt of play. Now it's time to see how you can grow off of that and continue to stay healthy and continue to be productive in the MLB.
I would almost be okay with some of the other stars not playing every single game. Brenton Doyle, like, I want him to be healthy in 2026 when the Rockies hopefully are stepping over, into a zone of maybe we're going to be competing for a wild card spot at this point in 2026, or maybe we're going to be, over the 500 mark in 2026. Like, I'm more looking towards the future. But Tolia is a guy, he didn't play his entire season last year because he was going up and down at the beginning of the year in the minor leagues. I want to see a full 162 out of Michael Toglia. If he can stay healthy, first base isn't a crazy spot to be at either, like athletically, so you can just kind of get away with not playing you're not playing at 100% at first base. You actually put a lot of guys there who aren't 100%, like Chris Bryant. So I'm okay with that if he plays 162 games. If Brenton Doyle were to play 162 games, maybe that's not the longevity look that I want to see from the Rockies going into next year. But speaking of defense, I want to touch on this before we have to get into another break. So I want to talk about this graphic that I saw last week, which was shocking to me. But this is from Brooksgate. Got to credit them. They do incredible work. But they did projections. Now, these projections were off Zips and Fangraphs and all of that. Like, it's all data. So I want to say this is not opinions, but they're projecting what each team's infield, outfield, starting pitching, and bullpen is going to look like in 2025. The shocking one to me is that they have our infield/catcher, outfield/DH at last. Now, I'm not going to go full delusional like Dick Monfort did and say that our defense is the best in the history of baseball. But I am going to go out on a limb and say I think the Rockies defensively in the outfield and in the infield are at least in the top, 25% of Major League Baseball.
Yeah, it seems a little insane that they're last. Like, they may be last in a few things, and I understand that portion of it with where their roster is overall.
The bullpen, starting pitcher, all of that.
100%. But the Rockies' defense has a Gold Glover at shortstop, a potential future Gold Glover at first base, and a guy that's been in the Gold Glove conversation, even though it's been won in the National League by the same guy, who we won't say his name, for the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. Another guy that's in that conversation was an all-star last year at third base. So,
and a Gold Glove nominated player.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So we're not going to sit here and say that they should be up there in the Astros, Phillies, Dodgers range, but I mean, I could see their infield catcher being 20, 21, 22, like being dead generous. Last. And to me, being dead last is it's a little lazy, and I don't blame these people for being able to not like project every single team and every single player, but I think the Rockies do have, relating it to a pod a couple of weeks ago we did, an optics problem and a stigma around them that they just like, they can't be good. Like, people just think they can't be good. Well, and that's not the case.
And the other part of this is I do think, based on this projections, because I did some background research onto like how these projections are made, and they do take into consideration playing time. Well, your outfield currently has one, all-star outfielder, one of the best outfielders in my opinion in all baseball. And then your right field is wide open. Jordan Beck looks like he's going to be the right field starter for the Rockies, according to Bud Black and Bill Schmidt. But that could change. He's still unproven. And then you've got left field with Nolan Jones, who looked incredible his freshman year with the Rockies and then took a dip last year. So, I think that's where the Rockies are going lower and lower. You also have to look at the catcher. Jacob Stallings, not going to be on the top end of that graphic from a catching perspective. But then, Ezequiel Tovar, granted, he's a Gold Glover. He's 23 years old, 24 years old. So like that's, I think, where the Rockies get pushed down a bunch, is that they have so many young guys that are unproven. And as I'm saying this, I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, maybe this is why there's so much optimism about 2025, because there's so many young guys that, like, on paper look like they can be really good. We just have no idea what we're going to see. The Rockies could lose 110 games in 2025 and it not be a huge shock, because you've got a bunch of 20-year-olds, learning how to play big league baseball for the first time. But the flip side of that is that you could also go into this year and shock the world, maybe not make it to the postseason, but maybe be a 500 team and it'd be like, yeah, because we've got a bunch of 20-year-olds who are turned out to be freaking studs, So like, I think that's where the excitement comes. Is it's like, like we just have no idea. It could be either incredible or it could break our hearts again.
Yeah, and they've been pushing the draft and develop model, but haven't really stuck to that model once it got to the major leagues. And they've kind of used that as an excuse of, oh, we just draft and develop guys, and we've got guys that are coming up and trying to just kick the can down the road with the fan base and the people that pay attention to the Rockies. Like, hey, we may be good in 5 years. And while that is kind of the case here, these players that are getting to the major leagues are the guys, like you said, on paper, this could be a 500 team. And they're going to be good defensively. They're going to be really good defensively in the infield. They've got maybe the best defensive center fielder, maybe the best defensive outfielder in the game, guy that steals bases. Like there's pieces here to work with. We're not talking about a bunch of dudes that are signed off of the free agent wire that are 34 years old and have a career WAR of -0.2 and are like, oh yeah, I hope they just return to, if we don't, let me just put it this way. We don't have a full roster of Chris Bryants that were like, they were really good in 2016. Hopefully they can return to that and then this team can compete. No, it's like, we truly do not know what we're going to get. And that's what makes it more exciting. It makes you lock into every at bat. Like if your 7-hitter sucks one day, sometimes I'll like take the third inning and be like, oh, I'm going to go out and grill now that it's the third inning because I know this dude's hitting. Well, the guys that the Rockies have, they're all kind of question marks. And so it's like, I may stay inside and grill during the commercial break versus watching a guy like, if Zach Veen plays, guys like that, where you're like, well, what are they? We don't know. We truly don't know.
No idea. When we don't have a crystal ball either. I'm really excited about the young guys that these Rockies can run out there this year. Stevie in the chat says the Rockies bullpen is way better than people think. Halverson, Peralta, Hill, Vodnik, Criswell, Alexander, Kinley, Scott Alexander, a recent addition as well. Really talented. We saw some of the success they had late in 2024. Great. I'm excited for them. It's just a matter of can they continue to prove that in a long-term setting. We saw them the last 2 months of the year. They looked incredible. Let's get a full 162 games out of that, and we'll see where they go. Got to hit a break here, though, but speaking of pitching, we're going to talk about pitching when we come back because we got to see our first look truly at Mr. Chase Dollander not too long ago. Yesterday, he had his first live BP session. Going to talk about some of the commentary around the spring training facilities and what people had to say about Mr. Chase Dollander when we come back. Before we get into that, though, got to give some love to our buddies over at Toyota. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR, of the Rockies, of all of our favorite teams, and there's a reason for that. They are the best in the business when it comes to having the right car that can take care of the roads, especially that you see out here in Colorado this morning. My God, if you drove anywhere this morning, I hope you didn't. Good luck to you. Hope you had a Toyota that had all-wheel drive because you might have needed it. It was dicey this morning. I had to go to an appointment early around 7 o'clock this morning, and my Toyota Highlander was kicking it, but man, it was tough getting there. And I was looking over to the side and seeing a bunch of different cars all slid out. Like you got to make sure you have a car that can handle all the roads here in Colorado, and Toyota has a ton of different models with all-wheel drive, so be sure to check them out. Spencer, I know you are without your Toyota still because your wife is stealing it from you for the moment.
She does have it. And ironically, my wife had a conversation with her other teacher friends that she works with, and she's like, they were hyping her up about the truck, and they were like, yeah, you got to be careful with that because that can bring any dude that's a 3 up to like a 7. Yeah, and I'm not like a very material guy. I do love my truck, but yeah, I haven't gotten to drive it. I get it back today and going forward. My wife got a rental. We got rid of another rental car finally, and so I get to start driving the Toyota land. Yeah, man. back in the land of the Toyota.
I love it. You want to be where Spencer is and where I am as well. Be sure to check out your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson's Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson's Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR. While we're talking about baseball season coming up, baseball goes hand in hand with our buddies over at Bet365. Baseball betting is nearly back. We are just a few weeks, months, weeks. We'll go with weeks away from baseball season. We're already placing bets on the Rockies to demolish, as our boy Nate Mills said in the chat earlier, demolish the over on wins this year. They set it at 59.5. I truly believe that the Rockies are going to win more than 59.5 games this year. You can count it, record it, get it on the books here today. Some good bets, though, as we get ready for March Madness, my first personal favorite thing to bet on here as we get ready for college hoops, the championship tournament coming up. But whatever sport you're into betting on, Bet365 has you covered. Use that code DNVR365 when you sign up. Deposit $10. Choose between either a bet and get offer by placing a bet of $5 or more, getting $150 in bonus bets, or your first bet safety net offer by placing a bet of up to $1,000. If your qualifying bet loses, you receive a match refund in bonus bets. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older, physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
What is that number again?
1-800-GAMBLER.
Cool. I'm going to put that
Dude, I have my speaking is struggling, man. I was doing a college basketball game last night. Now going like right back into a show today. It's been a long broadcasting season. It's getting to the end of it.
You're killing it though.
Thank you. I mean,
really
I appreciate it. It's just, and it's what I do, but not killing it, but just broadcasting. not trying to hype myself up too much. We're trying to stay humble here. But it's a lot of talking. So I'm excited for baseball season to come around where I can sit and watch some baseball games and relax a little bit.
Dude, I'm excited for us to like react to what's actually happening on the field of baseball.
I know.
That's one thing I'm really like. This is a great day because we get to react. I mean, we have to listen to the game on the radio today. I'm not gonna like go into the whole. TV
I love
situation.
radio though. I
love the radio, but we finally get to next Friday talk about what's actually happening.
I know.
Like that's very exciting times.
Well, we've got this new thing that we're doing in season called mini pods as well. About 15 minutes, basically one segment, but where we break down some of the top topics of the week earlier in the week. So we're going to be unveiling some new mini pods coming out earlier next week as well, because it's baseball season. So that means it's time for us to ramp up our coverage as well. Our boy Nate out there in Arizona getting all the good coverage. And speaking of that, Nate was able to sit down with Bud Black and get some thoughts on what the Rockies have expectation-wise for Chase Dollander, and also what their reaction was to Dollander. Nate put together a killer video. Shout out to our boy Nate for doing that. Tiff, we got that video of Bud Black talking. Let's roll that. See what Bud Black had to say about Chase Dollander.
My initial impression, also with the guys around me, was the stuff is really, really good. I mean, it's a really live fastball. That's the thing that sort of stood out for me yesterday, and watching him the last week to 10 days, that the arm strength, the arm speed, the hand speed, you hear the term how the ball comes out of his hand. It's really nice. It's a good arm and really good stuff. And the ability to spin the ball and has feel for a change. But I thought he threw the ball well yesterday. I think every pitcher, he walked off the mound. He was, a little disappointed in some of the, fastball command that, he pulled and yanked a couple pitches. But that's, understandable. He's facing his teammates, right? It's a little bit different when you have that velocity and you're facing your teammates and, guys that, you've watched and, admired on TV, and now you're facing them, right, in practice, but still. I thought he threw the ball great.
God, I love a rambling Bud. Dude just loves to go.
He does.
I love it.
Especially on pitching.
Yeah,
right?
that makes sense. I mean, it's exactly what we've come to know and love about Bud Black. And in response to what he was saying about Chase, like you think about it, and I posted this tweet kind of jokingly the other day on X about like Chase Dollander. I'm like, no pressure, Chase, but the fate of our franchise rests on your shoulders. Like I was kind of joking, but from a vibes perspective, if Chase Dollander shows up and turns out to be a bust, it's going to be the biggest letdown of the last few years, at least for the Rockies. Like there is so much riding on him being the next Paul Skeens that there's just this idea that like he has to be good. There's no other way we can envision the Rockies ever being good again if Chase Dollander isn't your ace.
Yeah, he's the guy that, as Bud talked about pretty extensively, he's got a lot of juice, and he's got juice nationally, and he's obviously in the top 100 prospects, so he gets that extra bump up, and people are paying attention to who this guy is, but he is the guy that other people know Chase Dollander is a Rocky, and they know that name. And when people know your name, especially being a Colorado Rocky, and you're not just like, you're going to be a big fish in a small pond in terms of like popularity around here. So he does have a lot on his shoulders. We haven't had something like German Marquez coming up when we traded for him, and then he signed a bigger deal. We're like, oh, we've got our ace of the future. And injuries, unfortunately, kind of derailed that scenario. But Dolander's the next guy that's like, all right, it's you're the ace, and you're the one that's going to be starting game 1 of the World Series if this team makes it to it. Like that's the goal right now. It's a lofty goal, but that's I believe a lot of Rockies fans, front office mind, like that's the guy.
Yeah, no, I agree. If I'm Bill Schmidt, am I going up to, I don't know, I don't remember who he faced. Was it Rymack, Tovar, and who was the third guy that he faced? I don't remember. I'm going up to them and being like, hey, maybe don't like hit a home run off him, please. You know, like let's try to boost his confidence here. You don't need to go up and strike out. I mean, you know, Scott in the chat says, you know, his pitches looked great versus Mac. You know, you don't need to be striking out, but maybe don't go up and hit a nuke off of our like the future of our franchise. You know, like let's build his confidence a little bit. It's a lot of pressure. I cannot imagine. I mean, he knows, and he talked about it in his media availability to start the year. Like he knows that there's a lot riding on him. He knows the state of the Rockies pitching and what that's been, and he knows that there's some hope there with the Rockies' young bullpen. But I said it over and over. I am not worried about the bullpen. I am worried about our starting pitching. It was encouraging to see German Marquez pump a 98 the other day. That was huge for me, just showing that he can get his stuff back up there, especially in his first, you know, real live BP. But I'm still really worried about the Rockies' starting pitching rotation this year. So the pressure is on Chase, but I think one of the things that gives me hope, aside from the fact that the dude has incredible stuff, is what Bud Black keeps saying over and over, is that like his mentality is leaps and bounds above what you normally see from a guy at his age. His maturity is huge, and I've talked specifically to Bud about that. You know, last year when we had conversations about Chase, and he's told me like him and Charlie Condon are two guys that like you just have a conversation with, and you already know like this guy's special. Like he is really, his just mentality before you even see him step on a baseball field, their mentality is very, very determined, dedicated, and mature for a guy of their age.
Yeah, and we've seen if you pay enough attention to sports and your teams and their draft picks and then guys that come up through the ranks, whether it's baseball, football, whatever that ends up being, there's talent everywhere. Mm-hmm. But what really takes guys over the top in those first couple of years, like you can't just win on talent. You can win on talent in the minors, you can win on talent in college, you can win on talent in high school. But once you get to the major leagues, especially with how different and how taxing a major league season is, 162 games, you're playing basically every day from March when you go to spring training, late February to hopefully October, but usually September. And that's a long, grueling season. You have to be mentally dialed in to not only your craft, but just like staying healthy. There's so many different things that go into being an MLB baseball player that you don't get a taste of until you're up.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they should throw him in early. Like if the Rockies had a ticket selling problem, he would be starting the year on the 25-man roster.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. Yeah. Because, you know, if they were like, hey, we need some juice we need people to come to the games.
They might have a ticket selling problem later in the year.
Well, I hope that's not the case, because I hope their play and the certain players' level of between the expectations and their level of play this year creates a non-ticket selling problem.
That's an interesting point. There is a world we live in which Rockies baseball is extremely interesting and even entertaining, even if they don't make the playoffs this year. Like that's a total expectation for me. Is there's a young guys, if you see them develop, you see them grow, you get bits and pieces. I got excited to watch the Rockies play at the end of last year because they were actually kind of good. You know, like there's a world where we can be entertained by Rockies baseball and them still finish under 500.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
100%. And that's where we have to see the season play out. But the Broncos for so many years were not only bad, but they were boring. Bad and boring is the worst combo you can have in sports.
Bad and boring. I love that.
If the Rockies are bad but fun to watch, and certain players are like, whoa, this guy's, you know, it's worth watching every at bat.
Give me more Hefrion jumping when he strikes out some Dodger.
Yeah, it's worth watching every time he's on the mound.
Yeah.
That makes it fun. And it doesn't necessarily translate to wins, but fun would be a nice reprieve from what the last 2 seasons felt like. And you talked about it, but we did get some of that towards the end of last year where they were like kind of winning some games. They had a few little winning streaks, and they were doing it with these guys.
Yeah.
The guys that they anticipate being the future of the Rockies.
Yeah. Felix in the chat says, did you guys see that video of Bryant getting hit by a pitch during BP? Come on, pitchers. Got to give a shout out to our boy Nate, who was the only one that got that video. Went viral. Video, I know, little air horns for it. Viral video got about 1.6 million views. Why? Because that's going to be the story of this year. Anytime Chris Bryant like trips, the dude's going to just get blown up. I mean, that's just the reality. It sounds like he was okay. Sounds like he got. I mean, Nate told us that he went back out there, was taking BP fine later that day. So
can we also talk about who hit him?
Do you want to talk about it?
Say this
Do you want to talk about it?
Did I not say this?
I know.
It's bad enough he's bad in the games that he's going to hit that guy in the first day of spring training.
I knew you were going to get pissed.
Fuck.
I knew you were going to get so mad. I know.
Anyone else. Could have been anyone else.
Could have been Herman Marquez,
Yes,
and you would have been
and
like,
I'd have
that's
been
fine.
Hey, he's just dialing it back in. He's hitting 98, but it was that guy.
I know. I love it. I love it. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. That's the world that Chris Bryant's going to have to live in because, my God, we're all going to be holding our breath every time he, gets hit, anything like that. Hey, we got to pause, though, for a quick break. After the break, though, I got to ask a question that might be a little controversial. Is hitting a baseball the hardest thing to do in all of sports? We'll answer that in just a moment. All right, back here on the DNVR Rockies podcast. I realize as we pause for this too, I want to plug an upcoming event because it is baseball season now, which means that we have baseball events, and you're our events guy, so that means you get to now go from like planning all the other events to like planning some baseball events. We've got a pretty good one on the calendar now.
We do. So June 8th, Rockies Mets. You're already getting a free Rockies Hawaiian shirt that day, which is electric.
Worth the price of admission, right
but
there.
We have an infield suite, food, drinks, beers, everything is all covered. We're taking a bus from the bar to the game, sitting in the suite together, enjoying food and drinks, Rockies baseball on a beautiful Sunday in June, 1 o'clock game.
It's against the Mets, right?
Against the Mets.
So Juan Soto.
We'll get to see Juan Soto, we'll get to see Pete Alonso. And it's going to be a great day. And
Dude.
we only have, there's very limited tickets for this. We can only fill a suite at like 20 people. So last year we did this and it was awesome. This year it's going to be even better. It's middle of June. It's going to be hot out. We're going to be eating and drinking in the suite, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm so pumped. I mean, it's like the Avs have their suite takeover coming up here, couple days? 8 days, 7 days,
Friday.
something like
Next
that.
Friday.
Friday, yeah. So it's always a good time, and getting to do it at Coors Field, that's just, it's elite vibes. It's going to be incredible. So check that out, thednvr.com/events. We've got baseball on the schedule, guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. Felix, I guess we didn't make this clear in our last conversation. It was Jake Bird. Spencer has a love-hate, mostly hate relationship with Jake Bird, in his Rocky fandom, but that's the world we live in. Yeah, I asked the question before the break, is hitting a baseball the hardest thing to do in sports? Well, there was a video that came out of Paul Skeens pitching, who we hope that Chase Dollander resembles Paul Skeens, and there's a reason that dude is the most exciting pitcher in all of baseball right now, at least going into 2025. As a non-Pirates fan, someone who has no relationship to the Pirates whatsoever, I'm excited to see thing to do in sports.
I am actually on board with this and saying yes, because I've had this argument in general because I'm a golfer as well.
Yes, which I would say is up there.
Yes, and golf, I've always argued golf is up there as well. And golf, the ball doesn't move. Now, you have to do some other things with a non-moving ball, but when the ball's going 100 miles an hour, I think truly if you took the best athlete or the best player in each sport, the last thing they would be able to do consistently or successfully is hit a baseball.
Yeah, look at Skeens. Like this, it's like 98 miles an hour with two-seam tail. I can't even imagine going up against that. I would look like an idiot. I don't know who's swinging out there. Yeah, I mean, his poor hitter that has to. I don't even know who that is, but I would say hockey. Hockey eclipses all in my book. I'm a baseball guy through and through. Golf is very close because I've recently taken up golfing, and it is very challenging, especially coming from a baseball background. Talk about just a horrendous slice. Hockey, I'm like doing what the guys and gals who play hockey at a high level do on skates is just like, I can't. can't even imagine that. But baseball, you could make that argument, man. Baseball is pretty damn hard to do at that top of level. The way I always argue this too is if you took someone who has never played any sports and you put them on a soccer field, you put them in a basketball, arena, put them on golfing situation, baseball, like if you put them in all of the respective sports, someone who's never played any sports, there are sports you're going to be able to just naturally have a little bit more success in. And then there are sports you're going to look like a total fool. Baseball, golf, and hockey are like right amongst the top.
Yeah, hitting a baseball is, if you had to face a major league level pitcher, it would take you the longest to be able to, like, if you made a 40-foot putt in golf or try to hit a 250 yard drive, like you could work into that. I don't know if people could legit get solid contact taking BP for days.
Yeah.
If they actually try, like there was a challenge of taking BP off of Chase Dollander. How many times is it going to take you to make contact if you've never played a sport before? Probably weeks. You could do it 5-6 hours a day, and it would
just
take
guessing.
you. Yeah,
I mean, look at people when they go to the batting cages, like on a date or something like that, and they're swinging a bat for the first. I mean, some people don't even make contact, or you get a foul ball, and you're like, "That was it for an hour. I got a foul ball. Like I'm hyped." Like there's just a coordination element to this.
You ever been hit by a ball coming from a pitching machine?
Oh yeah.
Oh god.
Oh yeah.
No, my god.
That's hell.
Square in the boob once. Oh god.
I don't have that problem.
Oh god, that hurts so bad.
I would imagine. I can't speak to that. I mean, I have taken a couple cup checks in baseball that I've heard were pretty bad, but I don't know. That sounds rough. Getting hit by a baseball is one of the worst. I would imagine getting hit by a hockey puck. Because getting hit by a hockey puck, like I've seen some guys who will slide in to try to get a block or something and just take one off like the shin or something, or like the leg, somewhere that doesn't have a pad, and just drop. You just drop to the ice.
I'm a baby. I stub my toe and I'm down. So I can't even imagine taking a freaking big ass piece of rubber off of your shin.
Coming at like 100 miles an hour.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, who was the guy for the Dodgers who just got hit? Was it Bobby Miller? Like I saw him get hit, and luckily he, thankfully for him, he was able to get up and walk off. But like you see that and you're just like, dude, like how do you? Someone would have to drag me off the field. I'm not getting up. Like
we give soccer players and basketball players a lot of shit for being a lot of crap for being dramatic, but like I would also be on the floor.
Yeah.
Like no, like that.
It's
that
why I have a hard
hurts.
time with like Kevin Durant, Anthony, Joel Embiid, where I see them like go down and I'm like, bro, really?
Yeah.
Really? Are you really hurt? Like,
yeah, let's give you one like carry in the NFL and see a linebacker, one pass across the middle and see what happens.
Let's give you a nice little Connor McDavid USA slamwich, from that game a few days ago. See if you get back up off the ice after that. Hey, circling back to baseball here. Got a few more minutes before the show wraps up. Did you guys see that Major League Baseball is ending their relationship with ESPN because ESPN doesn't talk baseball enough? What are your thoughts on that?
I tend to agree with them.
I kind of agree with them too.
Baseball really has its place in the summer, and it still feels like it gets overrun by free agent 35-year-old NFL players signing a
draft talk. Yeah,
exactly. Like the MLB really should own the summer months, and my little personal bias, like there's some majors in golf that should get some run, but most of the time, like June and July is baseball season. It's not, let's talk about who's going to training camp for the Broncos next year. And so I don't disagree with them. I don't know if they're just maybe going to do their own thing on TV or if they're going to go to like a Fox, like they already do some on Fox. But
expires after 2025. So next 2026 will be a new media deal with someone else. $550 million that they walked away from. It leads me to feel like the NBA, and then maybe this is a topic for a different show, but the NBA deal that was just signed feels like kind of ludicrous just because of some of the ratings and stuff around that. But again, that's a topic for a different show. The thing about baseball here is that it's very niche. And I know this because I host a podcast talking about the Rockies, like the most niche sports topic out of all of our DNVR shows, maybe aside from the Rapids. But there is a market if you can tailor it to a casual fan that just wants to, enjoy some baseball, like, you can tailor it to that. It doesn't have to be as polarizing as the NBA or NFL talk is, because I understand there is a difference. I'm not going to sit here and say that the NBA, the NFL, and MLB all sell to an audience in the same way, because it doesn't. Even if the Rockies are an incredible team, it's just a different viewership. It's a different audience that watches and consumes baseball. However, I still think there is a world in which you can find ways to capitalize off of what baseball has to offer. And I do think Major League Baseball has missed, or ESPN, I should say, has missed the mark on that.
Well, and I think the added reason for the MLB just kind of ending this deal is the fact that whether you like or hate baseball itself, or if you're a baseball fan and watched, they are trying to make waves and trying to make changes in order to make the game more watchable,
more fun,
and adding things here and there, adding the DH all around, adding the pitch clock, like trying to make the games more watchable and consumable for the fans. And then if ESPN's not going to align with that and not gonna care and push that product enough, then why? It feels like a waste of their time to try to make the sport better if no one's going to watch anyways.
Yeah, my concern is what you alluded to just moments ago, is what does this become for Major League Baseball? Do they just transition to MLB Network, making a big package out of that? Like, do they spread it out amongst Fox, Prime, Amazon Prime? Like, how do they go about that? My fear, and I don't believe they would allow this to happen, but I maybe have a little PTSD, a little trauma from what the Pac-12 has done, because I grew up in a Pac-12 state in Washington, and even here in Colorado, there's ties to the Pac-12, obviously. I fear that Major League Baseball is going to be too kind of high and mighty about this moving forward into negotiations. However, I do feel like this was the move in the right direction for them. I just don't know what the answer looks like beyond this. There's a world in which baseball sells. It's obviously a growing sport. People who say baseball is dead, like no one watched baseball, the Cam Newtons of the world. I'm like, you're stupid. Like, go and watch. I'm biased because I love baseball, but go and look at the numbers. Like, baseball is growing. More and more people are watching baseball every year. They're going out to the stadiums. Like, it holds down the summer month. That's just the way it is. I don't know. It's gonna be really weird. It's going to be weird not having Major League Baseball on ESPN. Sunday Night Baseball is no more. I grew up listening to John Miller, Sunday Night Baseball, then Dan Shulman. My favorite Sunday Night Baseball broadcaster was Dan Shulman. Did you have a favorite, like, that you look back on, like, Sunday Night Baseball and you're like, that was the guy?
No, not quite a favorite. Sunday Night Baseball, though, was like it's like my savior in the summers, because like Sundays you don't get the Sunday scaries as much in the summer. Maybe it's just me, but when you have that,
it's bright, bright all night, and it's, bright early in the morning.
Exactly. But you have literally, that's the only sporting event that's on in the entire, almost like, well, half definitely the United States of America, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. The rest of the year, you've got football, basketball, baseball, whatever it ends up being, or not baseball, football, basketball, hockey, etc. If you're a fan of all sports, Sunday nights in the summer, it is literally that. Yeah. That is it. Yep. There's nothing else.
Totally. And that's why I think there's a world that we can, talk about where baseball holds down that in a major network, even if it's not ESPN. Scott says, do you think it has to do with the drop in cable users? Maybe. I think there are layers to this, Scott, and to those of you watching. Like, I think there are layers to any of these media deals, whether you're signing a media deal or whether you are removing yourself from a media deal. I teach online classes at a college here in Colorado, and one of the things I teach is media and business around media. We talk about a lot of these deals and what goes into that, and it's very, very complicated. But the end result is, and we've seen this here locally, NFL, NBA, even the NHL, although the NHL is kind of bunched in with Major League Baseball, but at least the NFL and the NBA, that's what sells. So that's what's going to take up 90% of the airtime, even when it is baseball season through and through. And that's the reality for a network like ESPN. Now, there's plenty of other issues going on with ESPN right now that I think are, causing them to have some internal strife. But I think there's just a lot of layers to this that allow for a deal like this to expire, and we'll have to see how it pans out.
Yeah, not having Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN is going to be a little weird, but I think whoever ends up getting that, I think it will be able to kind of recreate a new fun product and make it make it good. Like they're getting a product that's been on ESPN for who knows how long, and they're getting every sports fan. And now that gambling is a thing, I think it turns a lot. There's a lot more eyes on every single sport, especially in the summer, because if people put $5-10 on something, they're going to watch that game if they can. And so and there's people out there that gamble on anything and everything, and baseball is the sport, especially all summer long. So it's going to be interesting to see what media deal comes of the MLB, but I think obviously cable users are down. We've dealt with a lot of shit here in Denver with the whole Nuggets and Avs situation, but I think people are finding different ways to stream it. And to me, the Rockies going and doing Rockies TV, it's $100 for the year, and I get every single game, and I just watch the games on that. The app is on my TV, it's on my phone, I can stream it, I can aircast it from my phone to any TV, like super simple, super easy. Instead of like, what channel is this on? Do I have to have this package? Like, I just buy I think that's where sports viewing and media is going in general. Every team has their own streaming platform or teams. The Nuggets and Avalanche kind of get put together because they're both at Ball Arena. But I think that's the future of streaming sports other than football.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, hey, look, we ran out of time here today, so we got to wrap things up. But guys, baseball is here. That's all I got to say. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully this is a fun season. We'll continue our coverage all week long as the Rocky spring training kicks off. And so be sure to follow us on our socials, DNVR_Rockies. Follow me at DNVR Saez, spelled DNVR SAEZ. Shout out to Tiff for pressing the buttons. Spencer with you here, hanging out on the show. We'll see you guys next time. Have a good weekend, everyone.
We all silly like the mayor.